All right, and we are live with the professor of catch wrestling, Jake Shannon. How you doing, dude?
Repping some good clothes, my friend.
Yeah,
I love your
CWO.
fashion sense. Yes.
Yeah, I figured I'd put it on because I'm teaching a bunch of takedowns tonight at my Corona camp class and all that fun shit, and gotta give some love
Corona
to you.
Corona camp. I love it, dude.
I
Can you
know.
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. So
Okay,
how you
good.
doing, dude?
Oh man, fuck this shit, dude. I
Yeah,
mean, if it wasn't for fucking microdosing mushrooms and fucking smoking weed, I would seriously. I've been watching that Killdozer fucking documentary. I mean, I know everybody's into Tiger King, but they need to fucking get. It's called Tread,
uh,
TREAD. It's this dude who just got fed up with all this bullshit, and he had a bulldozer, and then he like fucking got like quarter-inch steel panels, and then put concrete behind it, welded it all on, and it's a tank. You got to watch it. It's the greatest fucking thing. Happened here in Colorado too.
why is all the crazy shit happening in Colorado, dude?
Hey, dude, no, come on,
I
Florida's
mean,
still
Florida
got it.
has crazy shit too,
You
but I mean,
can't, you can't.
I've,
I'm sorry, we're trying, but fuck, Florida's nuts, dude.
Florida is fucking nuts. I'm really surprised we haven't had like anything crazier happen throughout all this. Like, I don't know, man. I was just waiting for like another mini Waco to happen down in Florida.
Well, you know what? You know who's to fucking what while this shit's going? You know who's to blame?
Who?
That fucking Carol Baskin, man.
That fucking Carol Baskin. Always.
That's
Fucking. I'm
down in your
glad.
neck of the.
And dude, Carol Baskin is literally like 30 minutes away from where I live.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and even funnier, one exit south, we have it's called the Big Cat Habitat. And this isn't Carol Baskins or anything like that. These are actually good people that rescue the tigers and like trying to get it back out in the wild and shit like that. But one exit south of me, there's this big cat sanctuary and shit like that. It's crazy.
That's awesome.
So what have
That's
you
awesome.
been doing through all this shit to like stay sane? I mean, I know you said microdosing and smoking weed, but how are you keeping the
I mean,
brain
seriously,
active?
microdosing, by the way, is the greatest fucking thing in the world. Like, people have to understand this. You know, we all know the hysteria around fucking drugs, especially out of the 80s and 90s and all that shit. But like, poison is in the dose. And if you take too much of anything, it's fucking a bad trip. If you microdose, man, you don't get any hallucinations or anything. It's like coffee, but you don't get jittery or anything like that. And it really makes you creative. I mean, I can see why all the Silicon Valley people are all over it. You know, it's great. But beyond beyond weed and microdosing, which are some benefits to living in Colorado, I mean, I've just been outdoors and just working out. And I mean, I listen. You know, I've been doing grappling and in this business for fucking a long time. Since like when I first really got involved in '94, I knew it was kind of my passion. And it was actually the guy who introduced us was the first fucking guy I ever saw fight MMA live. Was
Sean
fucking
Dutcher.
Doherty.
Yeah.
I saw
Yeah.
him live. That was so fucking cool. Anyway, so listen, I get it, and what pisses me off is like it really is fucking sad, dude, because all the gym owners that aren't going to be able to carry their nut for fucking 3 months with no clients. I mean, that's some rough shit. And I love all the guys that are doing like the remote classes, and whether you're jujitsu or you're fucking CrossFit or whoever these people are, and they're, you know, trying to do online training and stuff. Some of it translates well, but I'm just going to be real. This is why I never really fucking pushed like a catch wrestling version of Gracie University. Or you have to fucking wrestle somebody, dude. You have to have a goddamn body. And I get you could do solo drills. I mean, I do the Carl Gotch squats and the bridging exercises and all that shit. But you without a fucking other person and a variety of other people and their different bodies and reaction times and all that shit, we're fucking DOA, man. It's some bullshit. I mean, I'm just really frustrated because I lost like 3 camps, seminars. You know, have some of these guys. I'm concerned that when the world goes back, that they're not even gonna have fucking gyms, because it's just gonna, you know, I mean, I think gyms are slightly in a better place than restaurants. Like, but all these people that have low margin businesses with brick and mortar shops are going to be devastated. And people that have spent like decades building their business just to have some fucking douchebag at the Center for Disease Control tell them that they can't run their business. I get it. It's dangerous, all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. Anyway, I'm just fucking fuming.
I'm right there with you, dude. Like, I'm lucky that I started my gym like 14 months ago. So like having a smart business mind. We went in there thinking we may lose money for like up to a year. So we have a little bit of room. Like, my gym's going to be fine. I can sustain for like probably 4 months without any influx of cash at all, but I do feel bad for those guys that are out there relying on this government stimulus and all that shit. Cause I put my loans in because I'm like, oh, you want to give me some free money? Sure. I get it. Like, I'm not a big fan of socialism, but I get it.
No, dude, it's not. Listen, let me just say this, because I mean, I've been libertarian as long as I've been grappling. So I'm like a nerd on that subject too. And that shit, I'm looking at like a fucking tax rebate, and I'm only getting a drop of back what I put in, especially Social Security. If you ever paid into Social Security, because I did too, and I'm a little older than you, I ain't getting Social Security. That means you're not getting Social Security. So fuck it. Give me my money, dude. I have no problem with that. As a libertarian, I have no problem at all. It's like, it's a tax rebate.
I was telling everyone, it's like, look, this is just us getting our tax money, a portion of it back. And I was like, instead of giving me $1,200, why don't you just like don't tax me for like a year or two? Like, it saves me so much more money.
Yeah. I mean, but they don't really. Meanwhile, they're voting themselves fucking raises and selling their stock a month before and shit.
I know. I saw that. That was crazy. Yeah. I don't know if anything happened to those guys, like.
Nothing happens, man. Those who make the rules have no rules.
It's true. It's true.
It's just fuck. I mean, I learned that from Peaky Blinders, by the way. I binge watched Peaky Blinders. I watched the whole fucking thing.
I gotta watch that. My wife watched it, and probably before. No, I don't watch it with her. She's watched it. She said it's a really good show. I gotta get into that.
Oh, it's great. It's like if you took Gangs of New York and put it like after World War II or after World War I. You got more technology and the world's changing, and it's a neat show. But I mean, that's it. I taught my kids all how to ride a bike and stuff that it's kind of nice in that sense. I mean, nothing to do. And everybody's healthy in my house. So I'm very, very grateful for that. But it just seems, man, it just seems fucked up, dude. The response. And then, you see how, I was a statistician for a while. I actually made money doing that. And you see how they're skewing the statistics to kind of justify this fucking massive overreach. This is something that's just unprecedented. If you're a student of history at all, I can't think of another time when the entire fucking world was shut off and everybody placed in a fucking, like, all we need are those fucking, those like ankle bracelets, man. It's like this, not all that different. They're using your cell phone like an ankle bracelet to track you and shit. I don't like any
carry
of this.
around with us, And I mean, I'm sure there's been plenty of the conspiracy theorists and the writers who said one day we're all going to be tracked, that it's not going to be something the government imposes on you. It's going to be something you willingly impose on yourself. And this thing and, the laptops we're on, I mean, is what it is,
Dude, it's like, there was two dystopian scientific or science fiction authors that kind of predict a totalitarian regime. And one was 1984 by Orwell, which was very dark and authoritarian, but it looks a lot more like Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, where everybody's just fucking comforted into slavery.
Yeah, it's definitely
like we demand to be told what to do in fucking HD and Bluetooth headphones.
Yeah, it's definitely a crazy fucking time, man. Like, I'm just hoping we can get through this in the next few months. And I mean, me personally, from a business perspective, I'm like, you know what? If businesses are going to fail, that's going to be fine for me because I'm pretty good on the capitalistic side of things. Whereas if you want to like fucking run out of business and not go into debt to keep your shit going, then I'll be here to take all your clients at the end. But it is still kind of sad seeing all that shit go down. And I mean, it is interesting though, because you were kind of talking about it. For some people, it is kind of nice to have this time at home with their family and stuff like that. Like, my wife's in the kitchen right now making homemade tomato sauce and going to make homemade pasta. It's just stuff we don't get to do when we're as busy as we are. You know, you talk about teaching your kids how to ride bikes, but this is like kind of, I don't want to say it's a creative renaissance, but it's giving people more time to be creative. You know, like I've interviewed probably 15, 16 people in the last 2 weeks alone and just did this kind of stuff. And I'm putting out more content than I ever have.
Yeah. I mean, there is definitely an upside to it. And I think it is, it favors this worldwide shutdown favors people who actually do take entrepreneurship as kind of like a lifestyle, you know, because I mean, a lot of people are just bored and whatnot, and I can get as salty as anybody. I mean, I got problems with it, but you know, it is important, as you're kind of saying, that there are upsides to it. I mean, I am spending some great quality time at home. I am exercising my ass off in a way that I never really have before.
That's my coach.
I love the commentary. Now, is that a psychological confession? Because I'm going to tell you, I'm an old man. I don't maybe in my youth.
You're going to say the same, you say the same shit as my coach Bill, who's commenting, saying that shit.
It is Kleenex. I don't have lotion, but I do have. I have my fucking Magic 8-Ball, but it's a happy thing. Let's see. Let's see what I got. Well, it doesn't really come up. Let's see. Yeah, it's like not really telling me anything. Oh, it is. No, it says half full. It says half full.
There you go. We're viewing this world a little half full, you know? So before we go a little too crazy, let's get you to kind of explain your background, at least in catch wrestling and pro wrestling first, and then we'll kind of go into the whole new business, your education and kind of stuff like that. But go ahead and tell us about your background with Billy and your pro wrestling and all that kind of shit.
Okay, yeah. And one thing that I would like to say, I mean, one of the things, you know, you and I met when I was trying to book a fucking match. Mm-hmm. And dude, after I met you, I was like, holy shit, you know, you just get a vibe about certain people after you sit and talk to them. And I remember sitting to lunch with you and I was just like, fuck, this guy is just so rad. Like, cause he's totally game. He's fucking, he'll wrestle. He doesn't give a fuck, but how smart you are with regards to business. I mean, you're still a young cat, but I was really like, holy shit, this guy's like dialed in on fucking hustling and making money, which is great.
I appreciate that, man.
So, okay, now that all that brown nose and stuff aside, I'll get to my background. So, I've just been, you know, my mom started me wrestling when I was really little in Pee-wee. And then I moved around a lot because they divorced and stuff. So I ended up kind of doing different martial arts depending on wherever I was, you know. I did like some, you know, Japanese style jiu-jitsu when I was like in 4th grade. And, you know, and again, like Pee-wee folk style wrestling. And then, you know, I'm old enough that the Karate Kid was a huge influence on me when I was a little kid, when I was about 10 years old. And so I started up at a McDojo and got my black belt when I was like 15, you know, what that's worth. And then I got really, really sick. I actually was going to try out for the wrestling team because the high school I went to has like, I mean, a really badass fucking wrestling team. Probably, I'd argue, in Colorado, historically the best in the state. I mean, you can debate it, but I mean, it's a really great fucking high school, Pomona High School in Arvada. And man, I got cancer, and that took me out for about 3 years through the surgeries and the treatments and then the recuperation. And so when I got back into it, I was in college, and I went to the University of Colorado, and they didn't have a wrestling team. You know, when I was sick, I didn't have anything else to do. I was kind of a meathead. So when I got sick, I got flipped on the other side, and I was stuck at home all the time like this. And so all I did was just crack the books, and I got a good scholarship to school. And so I went to University of Colorado. But the movie, there was a Bruce Lee biopic called Dragon. It starred Jason Scott Lee that came out right around that time. And it was right when I was recuperating and healing up. And it just really kind of lit the fuse for me again with martial arts. And so I started doing all that and taking challenge matches and shit and getting my ass kicked. And all that kind of stuff. And then I kind of got my confidence back. And that was right when UFC 2 happened. And I ended up going, and that's where I saw Doherty and Shamrock and Gracie and all these guys. And it was like, I mean, it was so fucking mind blowing for me, man. And then I had privates pay. The only jiu-jitsu at that time, I was one of the very first people in Colorado to do any fucking jiu-jitsu or grappling or anything like that. I mean, literally like the very first camps that were ever held here, I attended. And that was with Pedro Sauer, a Hickson black belt, and Ricardo Miguel, and who was actually the reason why I owned Taurus handguns. He was like some mucky monk high up in the Taurus corporation. And then Caseca Munez, and who else? And then I graduated college, and I was kind of torn. I was like, I'm going to train jiu-jitsu. That's what I'm going to do. And I didn't know if I was going to move to Southern California or Northern California. And for whatever reason, I had an internship with the film company that produced One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, called Saul Zaentz. What's the name of the guy who produced that film with Jack Nicholson and shit in the 70s? So I went out to San Francisco to pursue that, and Carly Gracie, it was in San Francisco. So I trained with him for about 2 years, but it was fucking expensive, and I was poor as fuck. I had an English degree, which means basically poor.
Yeah.
So I quit Carly's, because even back then, we're talking 95, 96, it was $200 a month, dude, for like 2 days a week. I was working 3 minimum wage jobs just to maintain the cost of living in San Francisco. And I had already fucking really fucked up my neck with grappling by that time. So I had chiropractic bills. It was just, so I squashed that. But then Half opened his gym in San Francisco. I went there, I worked out with Kurt Osiander for about 6 months. And this has got to be 97. And then I just started getting a little burnt out with it, because back then there was no tournaments. There was no way for a guy like me to work your way up into the system. You know, like I always talk to Sean. I'm like, how the fuck did you get in on the fucking UFC? Like, that's so great. And it's just, there were so few things that you could get involved with and make money or do anything. So to be honest with you, around that time I started, I've always been a fan of comedy. I've collected comedy albums and stuff. And one of my biggest heroes was Andy Kaufman. And he has this film that I recommend anybody watch. It's the fucking most hilarious thing. It's called I'm From Hollywood. And it's basically about a documentary he made himself about trying to get into fucking pro wrestling versus Jerry Lawler. And I fucking loved it. I was like, oh my God. I never really had respect for pro wrestling before that. I was like, this is stupid. It's not real. You know, these guys I'm a lanky motherfucker. I'm never going to get to 250 in body. I don't have a bodybuilder. I don't give a fuck, to be honest. Like, I'm not into that. So I never thought about it. But when Andy Kaufman did it, it kind of was almost like when Hoist did UFC. I'm like, here's this fucking goofy dude, totally not fitting in, like, you know.
And not to interrupt you, dude. When I was like coming up, competing and stuff like that, I'm trying to play the heel. My coach Bill, who's in the comments section, giving your bio to everybody, is he made me sit down and watch Andy Kaufman, Hollywood, and specifically the scene where he's pinning the 250-pound woman, and he's like, I'm from Hollywood. I'm smarter than you. And dude, like, that was like my intro to learning how to become a heel.
Dude, that guy sold. He can't fucking wrestle for shit, and he sold out venues. People want. I mean,
him and Jerry Lawler.
Right. People don't understand this. It's like the same reason why Barack Obama was the greatest gun salesman in the history of the world. Like, you got to have a heel to sell fucking product. Like, it just is how it works. Anyway, yeah, dude. Like, so after that, I was like, oh shit, I got to get into pro wrestling. And it was so much easier, man. I started out making money. Like I could never fucking make any money with fucking grappling. Back then in the 90s, you know, I had a hard time. And even though I'm still goofy and lanky and stuff, I had a better shot in fucking pro wrestling. So I just worked it, and because I actually could wrestle and grapple, I just kind of took more of a technical wrestler gimmick, like a Dean Malenko or
more of the hard
Benoit or any,
style.
Kurt Angle. Yeah, like Luthez and all that. And because I was into real grappling, had a technical wrestling gimmick, and then I'm booked on these shows. I mean, I fucking toured the United States, making like $150 a day doing it and stuff. And but I'm with these guys who are like real wrestling nerds, like pro wrestling nerds, because they're in the business. And they start telling me about, Luthez and Carl Gotch and Billy Robinson and all this stuff. And it's just going into my head. And then at that same time, right around 99, 2000, Kazushi Sakuraba appears. And to me, I wouldn't have done scientific wrestling without what Sakuraba accomplished. And because back then in the late 90s, to say that you don't need Gracie Jiu-Jitsu or that you could beat Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, that was the equivalent of being like a flat earther today. You were fucking retarded. Like people were like, okay, but he's a flat earther. It was mind blowing, dude. It would be as if the fucking earth actually was flat. That's like Sakuraba's impact on the scene for me. And I was sold, dude. I was like, I need to figure out what this fucking guy is doing. And I knew the basics of the mechanics, the setups from the curriculum that they were teaching back then, and I couldn't, nothing Sakuraba did made sense from that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu mindset. So then I just went on kind of a quest to search him out, and I just have been very fortunate, to be honest. I mean, I've been very, very fucking fortunate. But, they say fortune favors the bold. I mean, I did go out and ask these guys. Like Carl Gotch is very famous for not suffering fools lightly. I mean, he is just got a reputation as a mean fucking bastard. Like in that Ready to Rumble movie, Sal Bandini or whatever. Yeah. That's like Carl, dude. He was just a fucking crotchety bastard. But he was an expert. I mean, here's a guy who launched Pancrase, was involved with getting Pancrase going, the UWF going, New Japan going. This is just a seminal character in the the Muhammad Ali Inoki fight. This is a seminal character, and he was just this little monk living in Orlando, and I kind of was just telling him what my vision was for. I was like, God, why is nobody fucking approaching pro wrestling as a real sport? It's all this stupid exhibition shit, which is fine. Nowadays, it's actually, I watch some of these guys and I'm impressed because I know how hard it is, some of the stuff they do. It's like being a stuntman, dude. It's like you get your fucking ass kicked, not in a fight, in like stunt work. It's when I did it, I fucked myself up worse in pro wrestling than I ever did in grappling. And I fucking broke my neck in grappling. My body, my hips are shifted, my spine's damaged. I've got this fucking I've got this hump on my back. I call it my cauliflower neck because it's basically like cauliflower ear, but it's on my fucking spine from breaking and re-breaking, and it fucking just it looks retarded. But anyway, that's from taking bumps repeatedly. Although I do think, I just had this blood clot scare, and this is something that I think is very, very important for people. My left carotid, come to find out, I found this out the hard way in September. My entire left carotid is shut, closed, and it's led me down this path. I'm pretty sure I had a fucking stroke like about 10 years ago. Like all these symptoms they were asking me when I was in the hospital. I'm like, oh yeah, that happened. You have to be careful, guys, with jiu-jitsu. There's something called carotid artery dissection. And it is from the choking, and you can literally fucking kill yourself or have a bad stroke and be paralyzed from trauma to the carotid arteries. So you can Google it. There's a help group on Facebook now. It's only BJJ. I think obviously all grapplers should join. They've let me join and stuff. But it's like BJJ carotid artery dissection group or something.
Yeah,
like
there's
that.
a whole bunch of guys that have been suffering from that kind of stuff. I actually know someone up in Connecticut who had a stroke on the mats, and it's all from being choked. And I mean, to echo what you're saying, like I learned it the hard way because my neck's it's probably a little bit better than yours, but I'm 25 years old. My neck is degenerating. The discs are starting to fall apart. And like last time I got the x-rays was like probably a year and a half ago. And they were like, yeah, dude, you're pretty much fucked. And it's because I sat there and would take guillotine chokes and use them to pass the guard and come up on singles and doubles and stuff like that. But if there's one thing I could tell you, like up and coming grapplers, it's like protect your fucking neck.
Yeah, because I mean, you know, for years I've had to make a living in this fucking business. And everybody's like, "Oh, look at his neck; it's so skinny and shit." I'm like, "Yeah, I've had fucking atrophy because I broke it. I fucking collapsed my carotid artery. Like, I mean, I've been doing this shit hard for fucking 25 years, man. You know, like." I'm sorry I'm not like a UFC champ or something like that, but I've been in the fucking gyms doing this shit for a long ass time, and I'm beat the fuck up, but I love it. You know, it's like everybody. It's like how many people's knees are fucking jacked now? Yeah. You know, I mean, it's like, it's just part of the deal that goes with it, but you are definitely right. This is like an awareness thing that people need to know about. And then the other thing, and I'll get off the PSA soapbox shit, but
dude, go as long as you want. You're doing good.
Creatine, man, you got to be careful with that shit. I didn't know about it, but you know, when I was pro wrestling, I did some steroids and stuff. So I'm not fucking some high and mighty guy, and I don't give a fuck about USADA or whatever. I mean, I don't do that shit anymore. I'm old. I'm like 40. I'm gonna be 47 here. So, but you know, like I love creatine, or I used to. I did it because it was like the greatest supplement besides steroids in terms of recovery, growth. I mean, it's a great fucking supplement. However, what I learned is that, so I went over to England in September, me and Sam, to tour like I have done for 10 years. And on the flight over, I ended up fucking forming a blood clot. And you know, I came back, I ended up spending 4 days in the hospital, and it was a giant shit show. That's when they discovered my carotid was closed, which is totally hilarious because it's not related to the blood clot. But the girl who was doing the fucking ultrasound, she's like doing my arm. She's like, "Oh my God, I've never seen it this bad. Your fucking arm is completely clotted." And she keeps going up, and she goes, she's like, "And your carotid is closed. Oh my God, how are you alive?" She's like freaking out. I'm like, "Can you calm down, man? Because your bedside manner is going to freak me out." Shit. But anyway, the doctors are all screaming at me and freaking me, trying to freak me out. You know how it is. They're trying to sell their fucking services and shit. And it was my wife who went home and Googled it because they were all like, "Oh, it's your cancer." And da-da-da. And I'm like, "Ah." And my wife goes and Googles it. And there's this great article. It says, "Why are so many pro athletes getting blood clots?" And the number one bullet item, international flight, which I flew over there, woke up the next day, my arm was fucking swollen. It looked like Popeye. In fact, I'll tell you this story. Like, I wake up and my arm is crazy swollen. And I'm like, "Sam, this don't look good." He's like, "Yeah, I don't know what the fuck's going on, dude." We're like, "Shit, we just got here. We got to work for 2 weeks." So I do 2 camps, which anybody who's been to our camps, they're pretty fucking grueling. I mean, it's 3 days from 10 to 4:30 or so of just getting up, slamming, twisting, cranking, all that shit. And then I had a seminar, and then we walked on foot around the city of York, probably 5 miles, and then walked around. Our host took us like 7 miles around the city of London. And then I flew back. But anyway, while we're walking around London, one of the people we walked by was like, "Oh my God, it's a real life Popeye." You know, because my fucking arm was so stupid looking. But anyway, I get back, and I thought it was just an edema, which is just swelling that sometimes happens. But I get back, and those are supposed to go down after 2 or 3 days. But the whole time I was there for 2 weeks, it didn't go down. Still, I'm like, maybe it's because I'm constantly using it and re-injuring it and whatever. It'll go down when I get home. I get home, it doesn't go down. I start Googling it, and I'm like, everything, starts, the web is like blood clot, blood clot, blood clot. I'm like, fuck, I better go get this looked at. And I went, and then they freaked out. Like, they're like, "Holy shit, how are you alive? You've had a fucking massive blood clot, your entire arm, like for fucking 2 weeks. And then you did all this physical shit. You should be dead." So, I mean, I really am like the luckiest guy in the world. And that'll bring me full circle back. See, I'm good with this shit. It'll bring me full circle back. So I am really lucky. I mean, my wife is gorgeous. I'm very lucky. I have healthy kids. Like, I'm so lucky. But in the catch wrestling stuff, I just, I wanted to learn this thing that Sakuraba was doing, and everything pointed, any research back then around 2000, the internet was still a baby. But looking around, everything points to either Carl or Billy Robinson. Billy Robinson's in Japan, so I'm like, fuck, I don't know how to contact him over there. And this is before social media or anyway, contacting people really. But I saw Carl was in Orlando, and I'm really good at research. So I figured out where he lived. And I wrote him this letter telling him, like, basically the vision that I've been kind of living for 20 years. And that is, you know, answering the question, what if we make pro wrestling into a real sport again? What if it becomes a respected method of grappling instead of John Wick done live? You know what I mean? Like WWE shit. What if we make it more like UFC? And he fucking ate that shit up. He loved it. It was like, and you know, all the curmudgeonly shit that you hear from other people, I just never got from him. He was just so fucking open with me and helped me. And you know, they call it now like, I don't know, what do they call it, like remote coaching or some shit, you know, like where you coach people over the internet. I had that since 2004 until 2007 when he died. And then, you know, Josh had been wanting to get in contact with Carl, Josh Barnett. And so Josh learned of me online or something. And he basically was like, hey, can you hook me up with Carl? I got a photo shoot with this Japanese magazine. They want to have me and Carl and all this. I was like, yeah, of course, dude. I mean, because Josh has always been a really solid dude, not affected by fame. You know, I mean, he's just like a real person, or he has been to me. And so I hooked him up. And then when Carl passed, I asked Josh, hey, you know how I hooked you up with Carl? Can you introduce me to Billy? And he did. And I flew Billy over. And then and then I really hit it off with Billy. And then the rest was just fucking history. Like Billy moved back. His son was in Arkansas. So he moved back and we just started building this whole program to try to get people. And that's when I had started actually the certification program, which is what I used to call the Coaching Catch program, which it's Coaching Catch now. So people are interested in go coachingcatch.com. But it used to be Certified Catch Wrestler. I changed the name because everybody thought, oh, I got a certification. That's like having a fucking black belt. I'm like, no, you're going to go get fucking killed, dude. You know, I created also a tournament called the King of Catch Wrestling so people could actually go get better at the sport of catch wrestling. That is grappling with pin and submission instead of like UFC, which is like submission and knockout. We just swap out the knockout with the fucking pin. Anyway, I stayed with Billy and was his right-hand man. Ghost wrote his fucking autobiography, traveled the world with him. It was really a fucking eye-opening experience. But by that time, I had to have been probably 35. I was already pretty much on the sunset of my athletics, you know. My body has had a real rough time. I've really been very fortunate that I've been able to wrestle as long as I did. But in addition to my cervical issues, one of the bleomycin, it was like a cocktail of 3 or 4 different chemicals they pumped into me. And this bleomycin basically scars the lungs. So by the time I used to have really good cardio. That's actually how I used to beat everybody. And I think one of the things that endeared Carl to me is that I had crazy fucking cardio. I opened one of the first CrossFit gyms. I mean, I used to be really good like that. And but after I hit like 35 with kind of the stroke issues and then the fibrous shit in my lungs, I had to move over to full-time coaching at that point. So that's kind of my deal. I mean, I've just been basically a gym grappler that I got into pro wrestling for about 5 years. I was doing pro wrestling while I was doing grappling on my own and stuff. And it was interesting. I got booked on the Warped Tour in 2001. That was fun. I got to travel around. I smoked weed with Cool Keith on his tour bus. Rancid, I got to meet those guys. They were they're huge pro wrestling marks. So they were on our bus like all the time hanging out with us. And I mean, I don't know, these are 25-year-old bands or whatever. So people may not, or even older than that. But anyway, so that's kind of the long and short of it. I mean, I've been very lucky. I've been able to coach under, learn how to coach and teach people catch wrestling under Billy Robinson. I was mentored by Carl Gotch for 3 years, mostly remotely. I did go and work out with him. But I also had luck to get hooked up with a gentleman who is still alive, but he's in his 90s, and he's just kind of doing his own thing now. And that's Dick Cardinal, who's a carnival wrestler. Fujiwara, I trained at Gene LaBelle's gym for about 6 months with Gokor, who Gokor I can't speak highly enough, and Gene LaBelle, but I mean Gokor I think doesn't get enough press. That is one of the most badass motherfuckers on the planet, and he's been doing leg locks since forever, and nobody really. I mean, I wish he would get more credit than he does.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Agree with that.
Oh wait, is your headphones not plugged in?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, I just had an echo of my voice.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, it's all plugged in.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was gonna say to echo what you're saying. I really do think Gokor doesn't get enough credit that he deserves, because any of the top leg lockers that I've worked with and talked to, like, they all say Gokor is like the unsung hero. I mean, you heard Dean Lister say it. Every time I talk to Joe Bays, Gokor is the first thing that comes out of him at highest stand. And like, what's his name? He's in
Melanson comes out of that line too.
Yeah, and who's the guy that Max Bishop as well?
Oh,
and, yeah, they all come from that Gokor line. And like,
Rolly, so another guy that people don't hear much about is Rolly Delgado, who was in Arkansas, and he worked a lot with Max Bishop, so he has a lot of leg locking, and then spent a little bit of time with Billy. What ends up happening with a lot of people that I found, see, I didn't have like a strong BJJ bias going in. You know how it is. It's like you're invested. I mean, you spend 20 years doing something. It's how you do it. I always came more from just a wrestling, grappling kind of side. So what I find is you see a lot of these guys who love catch, but they come from more of a jiu-jitsu thing. They don't integrate the actual wrestling or the setups from catch. They love the finishing holds, the difference, because there's a million submissions, but they don't actually do the setups and the entries from catch, which is what I think is kind of missing right now, because there's so many people who know the submissions and being innovative and going beyond. I mean, look at Eddie Bravo. I mean, Eddie Bravo, I'm sorry, I know he calls himself Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I think he owes more to catch wrestling than he does Jiu-Jitsu. He's no gi, and the twister is, he built an empire off that move. You know what I mean? And that's a move from catch can wrestling. So
yeah, I totally agree. I think 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu is like one of the closest things to catch, and a fusion of Jiu-Jitsu and catch. You know, like, yes, there's a lot of model playing and stuff like that, but like you said, I mean, Eddie has connections back to Eric Paulson and all those guys, and it's like, man, it's pretty close, man. And he said it himself. He's just a shitty wrestler that learned Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, I saw that on was that on Flow Grappling or whatever, that interview? I watched him on Flow Grappling, and you know, he's a really, really smart guy on the business side of this stuff. I mean, for him to be able to build such a massive empire, you know, I'm sure a lot of it has to do with his friendship with Rogan too, but he leveraged it masterfully. You know what I mean? And he's built such an incredible empire, and he's doing stuff that I wish I could do, which you and I have fucking been trying to make happen. And I think you're going to be the one who has better luck with it than me ultimately. And that is actually putting Catch as Catch Can on a bigger fucking stage. That is, you know, when I launched the King of Catch, it was all an open tournament, you know, like anybody could show up and stuff. And that's great, but that's not the best way to showcase the sport, because you don't necessarily get high level athletes. And I never had high purses, which is what you need to attract these guys who are serious, the Gordon Ryans of the world or whatever, right? So for Eddie to be able to do EBI, I mean, I'm being real, man. I'm just looking for some fucking backers or some money to do the same thing with Catch as Catch Can. I mean, that's what I've been working on the last 5-10 years. I've worked with you on it. That's the next level, in my opinion. We need like a pancrase, you know?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I had a similar conversation with Sean when he was down here, and I've actually been talking to the lawyers at the commission, and in Florida, we're pretty close to getting pancrase totally legalized, because you don't need a commission for open hand strikes. The only thing that you need commissions for is closed fist and kicks, and having the shin guard on is actually making it easier to get through. So yeah, you might see a return of pancrase in the near future, but I got a couple questions in the comments section from guys who don't really know what catch is. Can you define catch to like the average jiu-jitsu practitioner?
Yeah. So, you know, I'm so lucky. Like, I had BJJ fanatics reach out to me, and we just did.
On that. I just saw it. We got to plug.
Yeah, thanks. I am really proud of. I put a lot of work into presenting the information in a systematic, methodological way. So I am a big fucking nerd. I think if you guys watch this, it'll be a very quick, easy way. It's fucking packed with information. And one of the things that I talk about in the DVD is what is catch wrestling? Like,
and what's the name of
BJJ? What's that?
What's the name of the DVD if people are looking for
it? They only have the first one out now. The first one is out, and the second one they say is coming. I don't know when. It's just Catch Wrestling Takedowns. That was their name. I had all these other ideas, but they market better than me, man. Their company is like fucking so really successful, so I let them do it. Catch wrestling is a sport. It's been around for probably about 200 years now, and it's a Western submission grappling sport. It is no gi. It is the great granddaddy of Olympic freestyle wrestling, of pro wrestling, and I argue even MMA, given the fact that the influence of, proto MMA organizations in Japan like Pancrase and the UWF. It is basically, so there's two ways to look at it. I think the first is it is a sport. And so as a sport, it's a rule. It's just a set of fucking rules that two people compete under as a combat sport, right? So there's a million different variations of the rule set, okay? So if you hear anybody saying, "Oh, this is the one true way," I mean, they're part of Heaven's Gate cult. They're just short of getting fucking in a cult, because there's a million fucking ways to do catch wrestling, right? So you can, for example, some of the differences are some catch wrestling matches, the strangle is barred. Others, the full Nelson is barred. Some of them, the toe hold was barred. It's easier to talk about what the common denominators are. The common denominator in all of catch wrestling is that there's two ways of winning. Again, like MMA, you can win with a knockout or a punch, and then there's a point system, but fuck that shit. Let's just say there's a fucking knockout and a punch, or a knockout and a submission. In catch wrestling, it's a submission or a pin. Okay, so you can see WWE, you go watch these guys go through their little choreographed movements, they're acting as if it's a catch wrestling match. They can win with a submission, no chair shots or anything like that, or ladders or anything, but like legit sport. That's the sports side, okay? That's the one way I think that it's important to define catch wrestling. A sport, it's a game that you play with another wrestler, and you say, hey, whoever pins or submits first wins. Okay, that's the easiest way to describe it. So any move from jiu-jitsu, any move from aikido, any move that has a submission could be a catch wrestling move in that broader definition. There's a second definition that I think is important, that because catch wrestling is such an old sport, it actually does have its own canon of moves. So in a way, it's kind of a style as well. I think you end up developing a style after a sport's been around for a while. Look at UFC. When I look at UFC 2, there was no MMA style. It was fucking sumo versus Sean Doherty versus ninjas. I mean, it was fucking nuts, right? Now, everybody looks like Ken Shamrock or Frank Shamrock. It's like, you got to have Muay Thai, you got to have fucking wrestling takedowns, you got to have jiu-jitsu, it's developing its own style. Catch wrestling's got its own style. So there are specific submissions that are specific to catch wrestling. The sad thing is a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu people, not all of them, but a significant amount, have looked into the catch wrestling canon of technique, taken ideas and pretended like they invented it or innovated it, and
what? Stealing techniques? Who would have thought?
So, I mean, it's not everybody, but it happens enough to where it's like kind of a joke, I could definitely make a meme out of that shit. But the fact is that there are techniques and setups and transitions and strategies that are specific to the sport of catch wrestling as a result of it being done for many, many, many years. When it did get worked, the two big sports at the time in the 20s, well, probably in the 10s is when it really started happening. I mean, there's been works been going on since the beginning, but that's any fucking sport. MMA's had works. I mean, it only takes one person to work a match, by the way. And that's the person who loses. You got to remember that. Anybody can fucking work a match. It's not like fucking difficult. The guy who loses is the only one who knows. Like, I mean, you can have more people in on it, but you only need one person. So boxing started working, doing predetermined outcomes and fixed matches, and so did pro wrestling. But they both went different ways, you know. So pro wrestling just went full on cartoony, which then led us to Andy Kaufman. But boxing went a whole different route. So there's two ways to look at it. One is a rule set, and then remember there's variation. So not only were there different in old catch wrestling matches, you could bar the strangle, and even today, like the Snake Pick Wiggin people, they don't do strangles, but like all my promotions do strangles, and a lot of the people in the United States do strangles. But the United States, they did strangles for a long time. I mean, Strangler Lewis, the first Strangler Lewis, that's how he got fame, was fucking choking motherfuckers out. But the other thing is that beyond the different barring of holds and shit, which eventually it ended up being like what happened to jiu-jitsu, where it turned into judo. They took a lot of the dangerous shit out or whatever and called it judo so it could be a sport. That's how folk style and freestyle both came to be wrestling, is they took the dangerous holds out of catch as catch can. In fact, the first Olympics, you know how they always do the sport that's native to the country. So when the Olympics went to Seoul, Korea, they started doing taekwondo. You know, they do that, right? Well, when I think it was the second Olympics happened, I think the second one was 1904, and it was in England. And so they introduced amateur catch as catch can. You can go back in the records and see it wasn't called freestyle. It's called amateur catch as catch can, because they took out the dangerous holds. But there's other things that were different too back then. I mean, you could have a catch wrestling match and they'd have a 5-count pin versus a 3-count pin. And now you have, like in fucking freestyle, I mean, it's like, boom, the second your back hits the mat. So now the pinning can change. Sometimes the pin was just the two shoulders. Sometimes that's called a 2-point pin. And then they'd have a 3-point pin where you'd have to put both shoulders and a hip down on a guy. So it's just like playing different fucking video games with different fucking maps and different skins and shit. You just change the rule set up a little bit and keep playing the game. But you have to remember, like, when catch wrestling started 200 years ago in the Celtic Isles, like England and all that shit, it was illegal. Like, ground wrestling was illegal. It was considered like dirty, man. Like, you don't get on the ground. All wrestling was like, you pick the guy up and you put his shoulders on the ground, or you toss him. Like, it was all stand-up wrestling. Catch wrestling was like the first in the West to say, fuck that shit. We're going to do stuff on the ground. And eventually they just got acceptance. It was no longer deemed illegal. But, you know, they also imposed some rules and stuff to make it safer. And, you know, kind of how the boxing commissions got involved with MMA to change it into an actual sport.
It wasn't those old-timey eye gouging, biting, pulling out your hair shit.
Well, so there is a tradition that oftentimes gets kind of blended into catch wrestling, and that's called rough and tumble.
Yep.
And that's actually how catch started. So there's a great book. Let me see. I got it here, right here.
It's a nice pin you got over there.
It's called The Story of Catch. What's that?
I'm admiring your pinup on.
Yeah. Anyway, the book is called. It's called. Oh yeah, I've got all my crazy shit here. Let's see. Give you a tour. Let's see. So I've got my. That's like probably the best pro wrestling match in the world. Go look it up on YouTube. It's Inoki versus Billy Robinson. A buddy of mine gave me this old Playboy print. Thought that's cool. There's my degree. That degree is I got a master's in law. I don't do shit with it though. Yeah, I got a bunch of crazy shit in here. Anyway, The Story of Catch, Ruslan Pashayev is the author. It's available on Kindle and shit. You can get it cheap. So when it first started, it started out, the Flemish weavers immigrated to the North of England, right? So that was all these like people from the Netherlands or something. I think they came up to the North of England by Wigan and Bolton, and they had submission wrestling. They combined that with kind of the purring that was going on, where they would actually wear like spiked golf shoes and kick each other's in the shins. I mean, people were dying from like gangrene and poisoning and shit.
They still have that kind of shit too.
Yeah, it's nuts. but that was the more rough and tumble, and they called it they called it Lancashire up and down fighting, and that was rough and tumble, dude. That was poking eyes, scratching, biting. You know, it was nasty. And it was for bets, but it was like dog fighting. You know what I mean? Back then, people were so poor, and there was nothing to fucking do. There wasn't the internet. There wasn't podcasts, Pornhub, fucking video games, all this other shit that people are distracted by today. They bet on fucking everything, man. They bet on everything. And so they would get into these nasty fights. Well, anyway, so it was the merger of this Lancashire up and down fighting, some of the collar and elbow, the standard wrestling, and then some of the submission wrestling from the Flemish weavers that were immigrating. And that became the first catch wrestling, right? And then what happened is the bar owners, they noticed these fucking poor people fighting, and they're like, well, shit, this would make a great attraction to bring people in to buy beer. So they started like sponsoring these fights, and then it got formalized into a sport. Well, when the Civil War happened, you know, if you'll notice, a lot of these old catch wrestlers have Irish surnames. It was because the Irish were basically the really poor and lower class in England at the time, and they were basically colonized by England and subjugated for 1,000 years. So when the World War II, or Civil War happened, that was right around when the Irish were having the potato famine, and a lot of them came over and immigrated to the United States. Well, the great thing about catch wrestling is that it doesn't require a fucking ball, doesn't require a mitt, doesn't require fuck all. It requires some other guy that you want to beat up, and that's pretty much it, and some people to bet on it. And so when all these troops were bored during the Civil War, they started fucking around catch wrestling, and it got huge. But now that amalgam of shit from the north of England came over and got amalgamated with American rough and tumble. And so then you had so if you see gangs in New York, you saw like how the fights and stuff were there, where they were ripping ears and keeping them as trophies and shit. That was already here in the States, you know, in the mountain regions and shit, mostly the hillbillies or whatever, right? And so that got integrated into American catch. And so American catch got a real reputation for being nasty, like really nasty, because they reintroduced. It was like the rough and tumble almost got domesticated out in England, and then they brought it here, and it was new, and then got reintroduced, all that nasty rough and tumble. So anyway, it's a fascinating subject. It really is. Like, if you're into grappling and combat sports, it's very fascinating to study. It's kept me busy for 20 years.
So we got an overall history on catch. Now we're kind of in, I mean, obviously, to me, there were like two golden eras, you know, back in the early 1900s. And then I would say the Sakuraba Barnett days over in Japan were probably another golden age. Now we're almost in a little bit of a catch recession, if you will, you know, and I think a lot of that is due to infighting and, you know, like you said, the Heaven's Gate cult, where it's not real catch wrestling unless you do everything their way and bullshit like that.
Yeah, it's kind of stupid.
Yeah, it is super stupid. I mean, I have my thoughts on it, but I want your thoughts before I give mine. What do you think it takes to bring catch back to its prominence, or even if that's not the end goal, how to make it more well known to the overall grappling community?
All right. So I've been working mostly because I mean, even though I have a degree in financial math, I did that shit and I made a lot of money, but I fucking hated it. I felt like my soul was being sucked out of my body doing that work. So I quit. And so when I quit, all my money went with it. So I've just been hustling as an entrepreneur, and I got 3 kids and a wife and a house and shit. So I'm not rich by any means. Not anymore. And so during that time, I've been very, very interested in and doing what I can to do what I call growing the grassroots. You know, so I may not have money, but I did go to college on a leadership scholarship and learned some cool things, you know, when I was at university because of this leadership program I was involved with. And I've been trying to lead the grassroots to have as many people start catch wrestling as possible. Just do it. Like, that's where I think people get bummed out about, like, the catch community. I mean, anytime somebody says community, that's very close to communism for me. So fuck that shit. I don't give a fuck about a community. What is important is that individuals fucking try to wrestle and do this shit. Now, yeah, like, you go to these forums and there's a lot of fucking keyboard catch wrestlers on there acting like they know their fucking head from their ass. And I'm, part of that is my responsibility because I made all this information available and they all act like they fucking came up with it or learned it themselves firsthand. Well, it's fine because it's part of it. But the other thing you have to remember is that catch wrestlers or grapplers or fighters in general, they like to fucking fight. And that doesn't mean in a fucking ring. They're like, fuck you, you're wrong. And they just want to argue and fight. So I don't worry about the catch wrestling community. What happened the first golden age where you had names like Frank Gotch, Tom Jenkins, these big Farmer Burns, all the big fucking names that always get trotted out, Hackenschmidt. That was, I think, in a different era. I think that people used to bet on everything back then in a way that people just now, they fucking bet on video games and video poker and shit like that. Like they don't have skin in the game, literally, like catch, like your skin gets rubbed off. Like they don't do it that way anymore. And a lot of it's because fucking gambling's illegal everywhere and, laws are getting in the way. So I think that original golden age was built off of betting. And then the promoters saw, fuck, there's all this money. Let me control this. And they did it for a while. And then it ended up devolving into works, fixed fights. The second golden age happened because of MMA. And, my business, and I would argue your business, is all driven by MMA. Because I remember what the martial arts scene was like before fucking the UFC came around and after. And it was all fucking like Paul Vunak videos in fucking Black Belt magazine. But, it's cool, but not real. Like, it's not a sport, right? And so I think that the MMA was really a big driver on this second golden age of catch wrestling. The problem is if for those people who either study the history or were there, they know that the first UFCs were owned by the Gracie brothers, and it was a giant promotional machine to push Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and it was wildly fucking successful. And it wasn't later until they sold to the Fertitas and the boxing commissions got involved where it became a whole other thing besides promoting Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So when that started happening, notice it was right around 2000, and it was when Pride started coming up and it was competition. The market drove it. And Japan being so inundated in combat culture, they were the ones who fucking started jiu-jitsu. So fuck off with that shit, Brazil. And then they're like, they've been the fucking torch keeping Catch as Catch Can alive in a competitive sense since it died. And it was really when Carl and Billy went over in the 50s and 60s and beat everybody's ass. And then everybody thought pro wrestling was awesome. But that's only in Japan. So we did have a bit of a renaissance. I mean, I consider Frank Shamrock a catch wrestler. That guy kicked everybody's fucking ass. And he doesn't get any fucking respect because he got blackballed by Dana and all those guys. And I trained with Frank. I got certified under his system or whatever in the early 2000s, mid 2000, like 2005 or something, 2006. Frank is a huge influence on me. Obviously, Ken Shamrock. There was a lot of people that had catch wrestling influence that were at high levels of the game. But Sakuraba really fucking just made it obvious. Like, none of you are going to win ever. It's just done. Your fucking era is done. And that was like, Sakuraba put that stamp. So to me, the issue is not the catch community. And I don't even bother. I mean, half the time I don't even go on these forums anymore because it's just such low quality content. It's just people talking shit about everybody, and it's like, fine, whatever. I mean, that's what fans do. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're a fan, you get on that shit, but I'm not a fan. I'm a producer. I don't give a fuck. They can talk about my stuff and pay me. So my whole thing is this. We have to get money back in the game. And if we don't get money, we're not going to attract athletes. So this is something you and I have talked about. Like, I have to find a backer, a good financial backer that can give me $10,000 for a prize. Once I get like a $10,000 prize and put on a show, this shit will be no problem. I mean, I've got a couple of people that I'm talking to, but it's until the money's in the bank. It's like, I've had so many of these fall through over the years. I mean, I'm a little jaded at the time anymore, but it has to be money. We have to have a platform. That's why I liked Pancrase. Pancrase was a great platform to show off this style of wrestling, and then everybody wanted to wear the fucking speedos and shin guards. You know what I mean? You have to have these high level athletes show off the sport, and that's the best way to do it. So that's where I'm at now. I don't worry about the catch community. I still think anybody and everybody listening to this, like you're doing with Zapatero, should try to put some fucking catch wrestling on the card. I've done the experiment. Catch wrestling will not carry a whole card. We did that in 2018. It was a giant shit the bed. And I had Josh on the card until he got injured, but we had like 100 people come. I mean, it's just not ready for that. That's our problem. And, you know, I get a lot of beef like, oh, well, besides Sakuraba and Josh, who do you got? I'm like, motherfucker, for every one decent catch wrestler, there's probably 5,000 decent Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys. It's just a number game, man. You guys started in 92 with fucking the UFC and have killed it. And we just don't have anybody anymore. You know, it's just a word of mouth underground kind of thing. And a few people, we do have some high profile guys like Josh and Sakuraba, but the rest is just people under the radar mostly.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think what you're saying about the money is absolutely correct. You need to either have the betting come back into it, or you need to have a big cash prize to attract someone into the rule set. And I mean, I think the other problem is also the rule set. There's so many different rule sets, from the Wigan guys, the 5-second pin, 3-second pin, instant pin. There's guys who don't have pins in there as well too. But I think what you're doing with the Fanatics is a big thing as well, to kind of get it out there. Neil Melanson's doing it as well. You're doing it.
Oh, Neil's great, yeah.
Johnny Buck's putting out a lot of great content as well too.
Johnny Buck's great. Johnny Buck has won my tournament 3 times, man. He's a tough dude.
And when I was coming up and just first getting into the sport, I saw all your King of Catches, the West Coast, the East Coast ones, and that was like
we tried.
Yeah, and well, I mean, you guys did a bunch of them too. It doesn't always have to be those big like cash prize tournaments, but like for me, I mean, I was just starting out. I was like a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. I just started working with my current coach on some of the what he called the carny wrestling techniques and like mixing my wrestling game up. And that was one of my goals, man. Go out there and do like the King of Catch on the East Coast. But yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying with the whole money and monetary aspect of it. Somebody in the comment section, this is going to be kind of funny because I know how you and I both feel about him, but they ask, how do we think Curran Jacobs versus Gordon Ryan would go down? Because Curran keeps calling out Gordon. First off, let me say something. Curran calls everybody out until it comes time for a match. We all know this. And
you've gone down that road. I mean, Josh, just like, man, you know, Josh Barnett is a really nice guy. And man, the way Curran treated him, I really just lost, like, there's just no professionalism to the way he works, like as a professional, in my personal dealings. He may have been great with other people, but, you know, I'm actually a fan of Curran as an athlete. I thought he did quite well. You know, it's not because he has a lot of technique or strategy. The guy is fucking durable. I mean, in our tournament that he won, he's durable, dude. You can go, all the videos are on YouTube. He just got fucking abused. You've seen the pictures afterwards. I mean, Brandon Ruiz broke his arm. Like, so, you know, I don't see Curran. He's a young person too, you know, and relatively new to the submission side of things. He's a great wrestler, and he's a great athlete. And he's done very good in these kind of podunk level catch tournaments that we've had. I don't mean podunk. We've had some really good athletes, but I don't have the money to attract a Gordon Ryan. I tried. Before I tried to book you versus Curran for the promotion that we were trying to launch, Joel contacted Gordon Ryan and he wanted like $7 or $8 grand. I just don't have that kind of money. You know, if I had that kind of money, I would make it happen. Now, if I were to bet on that match, there's no fucking way. There's no way. I mean, it wouldn't even, I don't even think it would go 3 minutes.
They wouldn't even make odds on that kind of match, you know, just because it's
so
lopsided. Honestly, like,
and I'm telling you, like, I'm not a fan of Curran professionally. I don't like the way that he's, in my experience, kind of like presents himself as this nice, happy-go-lucky guy, and then just really slanders a lot of people and creates a lot of trouble to garner attention for himself. But I am a fan of him as an athlete, and I think that he's very talented, and he's tough. He's fucking tough. I mean, I've never seen anybody take the amount of views he did. And that was a hard tournament, dude. I mean, I would recommend anybody watch it. After we did that tournament, we had very small attendance. We had like 100, 110 people. Now, granted, we had people come all the way from Japan. People flew from all over. We had hardcore fans. It's just nobody knew what it was, and we didn't have a huge marketing budget. But Curran did fantastic in that tournament. Not because he did there was no highlight reel footage from that. It was just him getting thrown around the whole thing and waiting till the other guy gassed and then getting a sleeper hold, right? Which is like not innovative or anything like that, but it's a rope-a-dope strategy, and he won. I think Curran is great as an athlete. I just think Gordon Ryan is on a whole other level, and I think with the submissions and stuff, there's just no fucking way. I just don't see it. I could be wrong. I mean, I didn't think Curran would win the tournament either. I think Curran and Josh finally forgave him for all the 4 years of nonsense that he put him through.
Curran went over there and trained with him, but I'm talking about the Gordon Barnett match they had at Quintet. Like, Gordon finished him in less than 2 minutes. You know, and
yeah, dude. And I think, fighting isn't transitive. So just because, let's say Josh can beat Curran and Gordon beat Josh, so therefore Gordon beats Curran. Fighting's not transitive like that. Sometimes people just have your number and they get beat by everybody else, but they could beat somebody great, right? Like we see that all the time. I mean, look at Wanderlei Sakuraba. Sakuraba just could never beat fucking Wanderlei Silva, but he killed everybody else, and he would go up weight classes and shit. It's just sometimes people have their number. Like I say, I didn't think Curran would win that tournament, and he did. But he did because I think a lot of the athletes were like in their 40s, and he was 30. And a lot of these guys, I only gave them like 2 weeks notice. Curran had been training for Josh Burnett for like 6 months. So, there's a little bit of that behind the scenes stuff that nobody really knows. And I'm not out there trumpeting it and telling people, listen, I don't really give a fuck. I think that what we need to do is we need to get like a $5,000 or $10,000 prize, and we need to start inviting people like Bo Nickel and give them 6 months, with some of this catch training, how to transition from a folk style to submission without unlearning folk style and learning it the jiu-jitsu way. I have a strong intuition if we had a bunch of All-Americans and again, Curran's a great wrestler, but he's not an All-American either. I mean, imagine if we had these like All-American level guys, or like a Wade Chalice or something, or a Ben Askren, really taking seriously.
I'm not gonna shit on Curran too much because like me and him have made up, and I wish him the best and all that shit. But if you get Nicky Rod, who wrestled 1 year at Division III and is a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, and you throw him against Curran Jacobs, or like we saw what Bo and we saw what these high-level wrestlers did to Nicky Rod, it wouldn't even be competitive for Curran, and.
And I'm the same way. I mean, I've never really had any kind of I don't really talk to him. But, I leave him alone and he leaves me alone, and that's fine. I mean, I have respect for him as an athlete, for what he did in his gameness and all that kind of, that's fine. But, dude, like some of these guys, if we could get them to learn the catch style without having to unlearn folk style and learn the jiu-jitsu way. That's what I've seen for years.
Yeah, I agree. And to kind of like close up the actual like catch wrestling martial arts segment before we get into your business side, honestly, I think what we need is, like you're saying, a $5,000 or $10,000 tournament, make it 16-man, but it needs to be beginning like the way the UFC started. Which style is gonna be the best under the catch rule? So you get these high level freestyle wrestlers, these All-Americans, and then you get some judokas in there, you get jiu-jitsu guys, you get catch guys, and sambo guys. You just let them go in there under this rule set, because I do believe with the right rule set being the catch style, honestly, I'm a fan of the best 2 or 3 falls with a 5-second pin. I think that's one of the most exciting styles. You do that with no time limit or modified versions for the beginning rounds of the tournament. I think that's an exciting bracket that people would pay to watch.
There's 2 things that that I've learned over the years. I liked 2 or 3, and that's how a lot of things were contested for a long time. I think that lends itself to the old days when people had longer attention spans. I think for today, in terms of trying to actually make a viable product that's sustainable, has revenues that are recurring and things like that, and business, I think that you would probably want to go with best of 3. Do you know what I mean? Best 2 of 3 It's too hard sometimes because you saw that in the tournament. Like, for example, Johnny Buck versus Curran. They went like 8 fucking rounds, dude. They went around 8 times because because they just started playing defensive. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I totally know what you're saying.
But if the first person to win of 3, then you're easy. You get 3 matches, and at the end of 3 matches, whoever won the most, whether it's 1 or 2, doesn't matter. That's the one who moves on. That actually eliminates that fucking shit going on forever, right?
Yeah.
So best of 3 is better than best 2 of 3 for today, in my opinion. The other thing is so many people have like a fucking hard on against the pin, and it's from people who've never fucking been pinned. So I understand, but dude, pinning fucking sucks. And that's why I ended up putting out this video with Wade called The Finisher, because I wanted people to understand what the fuck is the twister. The twister is a pin that's a submission.
Yep.
What's the banana splits? What's the spladle? There's so many fucking pinning sucks. If you've ever had your like you go to yoga and do dead man's pose where you put your legs over your fucking head, you can't breathe and you don't even have another fucking person on you. It sucks, dude. It really sucks. And I think people need to fucking actually try the catch rules before they talk shit on pinning. I think they do, because pinning is fucking for real. And it is a submission a lot of times too. People don't.
And not just that, pinning is hard to do. It's not easy to hold a grown man down for 3 to 5. It's not easy to hold a grown man down for 3 to 5 seconds. You know, it's a hard thing to do. Everyone's worried about the pin, but they don't realize how long 3 seconds is. They don't realize how long 5 seconds is. It's a long time to hold someone down with both shoulders on the mat.
Well, here's the other thing. So yeah, the athletes, a lot of the like jiu-jitsu people who don't do pinning, those athletes are against it because it doesn't, they're like, oh, what good is it? It's not going to happen in the street and whatever. But okay, that's fine. But then how come nobody's rushing? How come fucking EBI is not on ESPN? How come I'm going to be real with you. Submission grappling is boring for most people who aren't submission grapplers. So what the pin does, in addition to it is a submission, it has all these other things for the athletes, but from a promoter standpoint and an audience standpoint, the pin does what the knockout does in MMA. It drives the action. When I saw that fucking tournament with everybody in it, the fucking the pin made it very, very exciting to watch because nobody laid there on their back, right? The pin drives the fucking action. So that's something also that people need to understand from a business perspective, that the pin is really great, man. It really is, and it sucks. So for example, everybody knows all the Gracie propaganda. Well, Mark Schultz is a very good friend of mine. I don't talk to him that much anymore, but he was a good friend of mine, and he held Rickson Gracie in a cradle for a half hour. You don't hear that.
Yep.
Okay, so if you and I go out to the club, or you come out here, we go to a crazy Lucha Libre show or something, we get in a scrap. If I can hold this motherfucker, I don't even care if it's Rickson Gracie. If I can hold him for a half hour, you can curb stop him plenty within that half hour for me. I'm talking street lethal and all that shit. Like, pinning is some real shit that nobody's fucking really giving the respect that it deserves. And that's something I've been trying to push. So I'm off my soapbox, but I do think that people need to play with it and wrestle somebody who's a good fucking pinner. You'll hate it.
Yeah. And luckily for me, I think what you're like, to kind of close this all off, I think the problem is we don't have a lot of people who know how to pin the way Wade Chalice does. You do, like you're saying, the Finisher series. I'm lucky. I'm really lucky that my coach Bill really instilled in me in the beginning that it's not just a pin, it's a ride. You're riding them and taking their will to live out of them and being as nasty as you can. So like everyone knows me as a black belt in jiu-jitsu. What you don't hear, and you can ask any of the catch guys that have come to my gym or any of the other jiu-jitsu guys, when I'm on top of you, you wish I was on your fucking leg instead, because
Jesse loves you, man. Jesse is like, he's my boy, dude, and he's a tough mother,fucker, and he loves you, man.
Jesse.
Yeah, he's tough too. I mean, you talk to him, he's all sweet and nice and shit, but that guy's a badass on the mat. The thing is I don't understand what the whole thing is. I just wish people would be a little more open-minded and experiment with it, because the pin is it is really important, and you're right. Treating it as a ride is a very smart way to think about it. But think of it as a training tool. So, okay, if you're trying to get into MMA, why is it the most, statistically speaking, people who come from a wrestling background dominate that sport? And it's because they take the tried and true old military strategy of the strategic high ground. Having the high ground means you have a lot of advantages. You can move 3-dimensionally, where the guy on the ground can move 2-dimensionally. You have gravity. You can see things they can't see. It's a better fucking position. And training with the pin is why the wrestlers have that fucking grilled into their head, because they don't just lay on their back when they get gassed or they get dominated and try to work a submission that way. So I'm not saying a bottom game isn't important. Of course it's fucking important. But what I'm saying is a pinning game is maybe even more important if you're concerned with winning based on the fucking stats.
Yeah, agreed. And if you go back to the old school Vale Tudo guys and original MMA guys who did jiu-jitsu, it was always, if you're on your back, you're getting back to your feet, or you're sweeping and submitting within 5 to 10 seconds. You don't want to sit there and lay there, like, hey,
those early guys, it was about mount. It was about mount, not about guard. Guard was like something you did if you couldn't get mount. Mount was number one.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, so let's transition from your pro wrestling, catch wrestling, martial arts to your entrepreneurship, because you got a new business coming out. Before you go there, tell people a little bit about your background in mathematics. You're an author as well. You've written a lot of books. You invented the mace bell. You've done a whole lot of shit, dude. So give people a little bit of a rundown on your business background.
Well, okay, so I think I'm probably best known. I still think I'm probably best known for the stuff that I've done with catch. But the mace bell thing has really taken off, and I'm just gonna be real, because I've spent so much time on catch wrestling. It's my passion. There's no fucking money in it. I mean, I wish there was, but anyway, I'm really obsessed with it. Obviously you have to be doing it for as long as I have at this level. And but the mace, I kind of stumbled onto it because I was just wanting to get in shape for it, right? I wanted to not waste all my time fucking lifting weights. I like wrestling, but sometimes you're in quarantine because of the fucking flu. So what are you going to do? And, Carl had this whole system of exercise that is based off of what's called Vyayam, Vyayam, from India, which is all the Hindu squats and the Hindu push-ups, and he has a whole thing. We have a DVD on scientific wrestling if you're interested. It is great for quarantine. But one of the things that he had many implements as well, and one of them was a gada, which is basically, it looks like a kettlebell, but instead of the curved handle, it has a fucking stick, right? And so Carl let me swing his, and I was like, holy fuck, dude, this thing is really cool. And what I liked about it from a wrestling standpoint is, back when I was being competitive with it, I realized, bodybuilding strength, that shit don't fucking matter. You got to have wind, and you got to have your body conditioned to the fucking impacts and stuff. But then you have to have grip strength. You really need grip strength, and not closing those fucking pinchers because you're not fighting a fucking weird metal object. You need to be able to move, something that's like pulling and jerking and the centrifugal force. And I started playing with that thing, and it was only 10 kilos. And, but when you get it swinging, that 10 kilos all of a sudden is like hundreds of pounds. And so your grip just gets fucking awesome, where when you tie up with somebody, they're like, fuck, I want this to end now. And you just grab their wrist, So I really didn't plan on marketing it much beyond MMA people. I just was like, yeah, I got a manufacturer. I can do this. It's cool. But I happened to own a CrossFit at the time. And it was one of the first CrossFits. This is probably 2005, 2006. It was in San Juan Capistrano, CrossFit Beach Cities. And because I was plugged into that scene, they had started moving beyond their gymnastics, powerlifting paradigm, and started doing kettlebells and all this stuff, right? But now kettlebells had already had 10 years of history. Mace bells were new. So I did I was able to plant some seeds, and here we go, like 15 years later, the fucking things are in 24-hour fitness. I walked into a 24-hour fitness, and they had mace bells, and I'm like, oh, I invented that. They looked at me like, yeah, sure you did. I'm like, no, that's like, I invented that shit. But now it's like everywhere. So, I've had success as an entrepreneur. Scientific wrestling is more of a passion play. I really haven't made much money from it. I break even and make a little bit, but it's not, I can't fucking keep my family afloat with that shit. Unfortunately, I wish I could, but it's just not there. The mace bell, I invented it, but it's one of those things like, how hard is it once you invent a fucking steel ball and a stick, you can't stop other people from making that shit. So like Joe Rogan and On It really took it, and they took it to a whole new level. And I have no problem with that. I mean, it's like the thing with Kern. I don't take anything personal. I just, is this going to help me and my family or not? And until somebody comes around or whatever, but if it's not hurting me, I don't care. And so like with On It, they blew it up, dude. And they had better funding, and they are focused on exercise, not grappling. And so dude, it's crazy. It's like fucking everywhere. Now they call it the steel mace, but I think there's got to be, they're just probably one of the bigger manufacturers right now, but they're everywhere, dude. It's insane. If you type in like steel mace, mace bell, you get like millions of results. It's crazy. So I've been lucky in that regard too. Like the mace, it's become far more influential than I ever thought it would. And people are innovating with it. They've got so many cool new things that they do. So that I've had success there. So in the kind of physical fitness, mostly it's around combat sports. My businesses have done pretty well. Outside of that, I did get I got my master's. I got sick after I had an English degree and lived in San Francisco. I got fucking sick of being poor, man. I'll tell you this story. This is the day. I can tell you the day I fucking was like, fuck this shit. I was like done. I had 3 jobs, all of them minimum wage. I was poor as fuck. I'm like in my early 20s, and it's just, I'm like constantly working, have no money. I go there. I remember I was working at this used bookstore, and across the street was a Chinese food place, and they had a lunch special. It was $2, and you could get one of those little square paper boxes full of fucking whatever for $2. And I was like, oh man, that's awesome. I can eat out. I mean, I was eating like only eggs at that time because it was like all I could afford. So I go over to this place. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to give them two of my hard-earned dollars. I give my money. They give me this box. I go back and I start eating. I get about halfway through because I'm bullshitting while I'm eating. And I talk to one of my friends, and I look down, and there's all these fucking cockroaches in it. And I had already eaten half of it. Like, they were dead, but it was all fucking legs, bodies, and all this shit. And I'm like, and I was just like, if I don't eat this, I'm not going to get calories today. And I fucking ate it. And after that, I was like, dude, I cannot live like that. I can't do that, dude. And so, like I said, I've been a libertarian as long as I've been a grappler. And one of my jobs, so I was at this used bookstore, but I also had this job at a libertarian bookstore in San Francisco. It was a mail order. It was before Amazon existed, right? So people would have to get these mail order catalogs and then order shit over the mail. And I was working there. And because I was there all the time, we used to have authors come in all the time. And there's a lot of libertarian economists. I would argue back, especially then, if you were in an economics program, you were probably a libertarian. That's back then. It used to be like that. And so I got to know all these fucking big name academics in economics. And because I was reading the books and I was an English major, so I could read like a motherfucker, I could get through this shit quick. I ended up knowing a lot of what they were talking about, and then I could talk to these fucking guys about it. And because of that, a couple of them were like, why don't you try out for grad school? And I'm like, dude, I have an English degree. They're like, I don't care. Here, just apply. And 2 of them were fucking, one was the dean of this department at Golden Gate University, which is like the oldest private school in California. And he's like, just try. Take the GRE, see if you can get in. And I did, and he gave me a fucking recommendation. I got in. So I actually started in 97 in the applied economics department. And but that was right when the tech boom was happening, the first internet boom. So I decided, like, economics is cool, but there's no computer programming classes. There was a field coming up at that time called financial engineering, which is basically financial mathematics and computer programming. It's computational finance. And so I was like, well, I'm going to go for that because I know there's going to be more money in it because there's computers in addition to finance. And I did that and I fucking graduated. It's like totally a hard thing, but I buckled down and did it. And I graduated in 2002. I ended up working, I worked at some tech companies for a while in the Bay Area. Then I ended up getting involved in investment banking and then mortgage banking. And during all that time, I mean, I'm really an entrepreneur in my heart, and I have no problem with people that just have jobs and go to job 9 to 5. And it was killing me, dude. I mean, it was fucking killing me. I was rich as fuck, dude. I was making probably back then in 2004, I was making $250,000 a year. Single, about 30 years old, living on Venice Beach. I mean, it was Wolf of Wall Street shit, dude. I mean, I'm not going to say I was snorting coke out of a hooker's ass or anything, but it was people that age shouldn't have that kind of fucking money. It really is like not a good thing. But I hated it, dude. Because I lived in Venice Beach because I wanted to. I was like, this is the only way I can fucking make this cool is if I live here. But I'd have to commute to fucking Pasadena. And if anybody who knows how California traffic is, that was a 2-hour drive, dude, during rush hour because I had a 9 to 5 gig. So I was spending 4 hours on the fucking road, but I was making $250,000 a year. I mean, I was super stoked back then, right? Like with $2004, not $2020. Anyway, I got sick of it, and I really saw the writing on the wall about the financial crisis. I've been very lucky. I got a little fucking crazy and I deleted my LinkedIn, but I still have the recommendations from the people. But like all the people I used to work with at this bank, IndyMac Bank, which was the first bank to get nationalized during the financial crisis in 2007, my title was Manager of Oversight for Complex Instruments, which is just a fucking wonky computer nerd, math nerd fucking title for all their weird derivative products, FAS 133 and these other fucking. So I was in charge of all this shit. And I was like, this is fucked, people. And when I would raise my concerns to senior management, they didn't want to fucking hear it because what I was saying was in direct opposition with their fucking KPIs, their key performance indicators to get these fucking $300,000 bonuses at the year. So they didn't want me fucking making any noise. But I was right as fuck. And I got out. I got out before. So I was at IndyMac. I saw the writing on the wall. I was getting passed over for shit. And I'm like, I'm right. Why am I getting fucking screwed here? I'm fucking going to save this bank. But anyway, they were all very short-sighted. They had a subsidiary that was called Financial Freedom. And they were the biggest at the time. I think Wells Fargo might be now, or I'm not sure because I'm out of the game. But they were the biggest originator of reverse mortgages. And I developed a model that would help price what's called the mortgage servicing rights for reverse mortgages. And so I ended up getting very intimately involved in that business. Anyway, I worked for this other company and one day I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't do the corporate bullshit. I fucking hate all that bullshit. It's so fake. And so one day I was like, man, I went into my boss and I said, listen, dude, because he'd been bugging me. I worked there for probably about a year and a half, 2 years. And he bugged me every fucking week. He's like, we need to know what the market share is. Like, what are our competition doing? How much of the market do they own? And these are private companies. They don't have 10Ks where I can go find out their fucking revenues or how much of the total market. We didn't know that. And he kept bugging me. And I'm like, dude, unless you're going to give me a budget for fucking corporate espionage and I go send somebody in there to sneak and find all this shit, which is illegal, you're never going to get that answer. And then it came to me. I worked as a statistician in the early 2000s with a what's called a database cooperative, which is basically like you'd have Victoria's Secret and Fredericks of Hollywood. They would both give their data to this company. Now the company would promise not to share it with each other, but what they would do is they would dedupe all the duplicate people, the same people that shopped at Fredericks and shopped at fucking Victoria's Secret. They would take those out and say, hey, Victoria's Secret wants to sell you the clients they have that you don't have. And Fredericks wants to sell you the clients they have that they don't have. And then you can make money off of that. You know what I mean? So I was like, dude, you want to know the market share? Here's the deal. I got the answer. We have to quit. And he looked at me and was like, what? And I'm like, okay, just hear me out. We quit. We start a new fucking company. We go give everybody NDAs and non-disclosure agreements, and we get their data, and we have a blind database, and then we sell them reports because you can't be the only person who wants to know this fucking data, and these guys are banks, so they got a lot of money, so let's just fucking do that. So I did that, and he believed me, and we did it, and it took off, and it's still going to this day. So it's called Reverse Market Insight, and it's still going to this day. So I've had luck with entrepreneurial ventures, but some of it also, I don't know, it's weird because I'd like to take credit for some of these ideas, but it also seems sometimes like maybe a bit of channeling. You know what I mean? Like it's like idea pops into my head. I didn't deductively I deduced that shit. No, it just fucking popped up and I decided to listen to it. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Anyway, so I've had a lot of luck in that. And then my wife and I, when I married my wife, she was working with this software company. It was basically her and this other guy, the guy who sold the software, and then she'd go help install it and support it. And it was like tiny. But because I had worked in tech support and in software and in finance and all that, when we got married, I was like, you know what? Let's just be entrepreneurs. And we built this business together into a bigger technology company. And now we're spinning that off, and I'm launching, and this is, I think, maybe what you were alluding to when I started on this long, fucking boring rant. We probably lost all the grappling people. All the fucking grappling people. Who the fuck is this nerd? Anyway, I just launched Budista, BUDISTA.com. You guys can check it out. BUDISTA, like barista from Starbucks, but bud, like weed, BUD, Budista.com. And it's a cannabis, it's what they call Canatech. It's a cannabis technology company, and it has like a point of sale inventory. It's a seed to sale software system to help dispensary owners. And we do like shit that nobody else is doing right now. We do like, which is perfect for this fucking quarantine. In fact, we do like mobile delivery. We do curbside pickup, all this shit that nobody else ever fucking thought of. We had already had in the fucking programming, and then the quarantine happened. So, now we're going to, I've got a friend of mine is really, really good at raising money in venture capital and stuff. So that's the next step. Right when all this quarantine shit happened, we launched our site, got all our software set, and we were going to go start courting all these investors. And this is a guy who helped take the first Canatech company public on the New York Stock Exchange. This is like a legit dude. So I'm really excited about that. And if that takes off, then I won't have to worry about finding a money backer to create this catch wrestling platform that, for this pet project, this passion project of mine. So I've been lucky in finance like that, but I'm also a late bloomer. I didn't really start until I was probably 35 when I really got that entrepreneurial bug and ran with it hard.
It's crazy, man. Like, here, one sec. I keep hearing myself echo. I think it's on your end.
I still have my headphones on. I don't know. I'll move my mic. Does that help at all?
Yeah. That's probably what it was. It's probably just your mic too close to whatever the hell that was.
Maybe it's too close. Here we go. Yeah. Okay.
Sweet. But yeah, dude, like just the ability to pivot from the finances to another emerging market in the Canatech industry. And when I heard point of sale for dispensaries, I was just like, $, $, like just that alone, let alone your curbside pickup, your delivery and stuff like that. And just combining all of these other aspects of business that are already big in other fields and bringing it to the cannabis industry. Because I really believe we're still in the infancy of how big the cannabis market's going to get. Because states are starting to legalize it more and more, but eventually it's going to be nationwide. And as big as it is in Colorado and California, Portland, it's going to be everywhere else, Well,
especially as like the country gets really hungry for tax dollars because
which is the perfect climate right now.
Yeah, they're going to be fucking like, how can I make some more money? Legalize weed. I'm like, I've been working on this for probably 5 years before we even really got to a point where we could launch. So, it's weird being an entrepreneur, but I like it because it's very Wild West, man. It's like, it's you hustling and figuring shit out, and you got to solve problems on the fly, and there's no fucking boss, and there's no nobody to blame. And, you know, it's like wrestling. It's like grappling. Like, I like it. I really do like the competitive nature. I like the creativity. I like the lessons you learn. I like the person you become from being an entrepreneur. I think if there is a good thing that comes from this quarantine, I hope it's people learn how to make money instead of how to work a job.
Yeah, dude. And I think that's why you and I get along so well, is because we have that entrepreneurial mindset. And like you said, it's very similar to wrestling and grappling and stuff like that. And when I was coming up in school, like I was that kid that would just bounce around from one thing to the other. You know, like one day I wanted to be a history teacher. I wanted to be a music teacher. I wanted to be a lacrosse coach. I wanted to run a band. I wanted to fight MMA. And it was just like my brain.
And that's a liability. That's a liability in like the normal way of thinking. But as an entrepreneur, you have to have that.
Yeah, exactly. And I never, like, it's crazy because my stepdad was a business owner. He owned a metadata management company and stuff like that. So I had been around entrepreneurs growing up, but I never thought about it that way. And I always thought I was just this weirdo because I couldn't figure out one thing to focus on. I was like, oh, it's just ADHD and shit like that. But I can't do any other shit. Yeah, dude.
That's the worker bee shit. That's what I really noticed once I started having kids, is how fucking stupid school is. All school. I mean, I'm talking like elementary school. It's fucking stupid. Like, I ended up taking all my kids out. So we don't homeschool, but we put them in this private school. Our kids have been in private school most of their lives. I put them in a public school once, took them out again, man. It was fucking a disaster. We follow this thing called the Sudbury method, which is basically like unschooling, but you take them somewhere. You don't do it at your house. You know, it's like there's a school they go to, but like my daughter can play piano by ear now. You know, my son fucking types faster than like a court stenographer because he's fucking on the computer all day. Like, I mean, these are actual, they're going to get skills doing the shit they fucking love, and they're going to get a head start. I didn't start until I was 35, and I'd gone all the way through the educational process and got my fucking master's degree, but I don't even do shit with it. I mean, it was all part of it, but you know, if being a parent means maybe taking the lessons you learned and giving your kids a head start, I feel one of the first things I can do is fucking cut out all the bullshit. They don't need to learn geometry unless they're going to be a mathematician. They don't need to learn social studies unless they're going to be some douchebag politician. By the way, fucking end my life if any of my kids become fucking politicians. Like, being a free person to pursue your passion and to become the best person at that fucking passion, there's money in that. You know what I mean? And that is kind of the entrepreneurial mindset, is like, you know, business gets such a bad rep, especially from these dummies on the left. And I'm neither right nor left. The right's got plenty of fucking stupid ideas. Don't get hurt. But the thing is that business, I don't mean corporate shit. I fucking hate corporate shit. I've said nothing but that I fucking hated it and couldn't live that lifestyle. I'm talking the mindset of a small business owner is the greatest fucking thing in the world, because you're creating jobs. Fucking Trump, fucking Obama, they don't create shit. They love to take credit. Oh, I did this, I did that. They didn't do fuck all. It's people who are creating the jobs are the fucking entrepreneurs. And period. That's the job creators. You know what I mean? And these people saying like about immigration and all that, it's like, it's not your job to fucking tell. If I hire who the fuck I want because I created the fucking job. You know what I mean? Like, if I can get a Mexican guy to do the same job cheaper, I'm not racist. He's doing it cheaper. That's sustainability. All these fucking lefties want to talk environmentalism and shit. And I hate pollution. Don't get me wrong. I think that's some fucked up shit. And corporations and governments are the worst at it. But I think that, like, they talk about sustainability and ecosystems and all that. What the fuck is a business? A business is a sustainable ecosystem of human beings figuring out how to best make fucking the resources get around. You know? And that's why I don't worry about like the catch wrestling community or communism or any of that shit. They can all do that. They're all going to be the Bernie Sanders fucking endorsing Joe Biden. I don't give a fuck. They can do that dumb shit. What's going to matter is getting people off their asses, doing catch wrestling and taking the initiative and trying to put on their own tournaments, trying to hold their own classes. That's what's going to get it. Is not this top down, oh, we need like an Olympic fucking, fuck your fucking the body, the board that decides things. Fuck them. Let's go bottom up. Have some entrepreneurs. Find a fucking investor who's as passionate about this shit as we are. It'll be done. The second that happens, it'll be done, because it's fucking happened time and time again. That's what happened with UFC. That's what, I mean, it's just, You have to have a money backer and a showcase, and then the sport will take off. Now there's jiu-jitsu everywhere, and I'm happy for that. I'm thrilled that people can grapple because, frankly, 99% of people that get into catch come from jiu-jitsu first. That's awesome. I could never have done that if those Gracies hadn't took that entrepreneurial fucking spirit and tried to launch the UFC. It just we wouldn't be here. I wouldn't know you. I wouldn't have all the friends and the fantastic luck-filled life that I love if it wasn't for jiu-jitsu entrepreneurs. That's the fact.
Dude, that's like the perfect point to end on because that's like the highest note. It encompasses everything. So if people want to find your
Full
stuff,
circle.
Yeah, full circle. And I got to have you back on next week because I want to get you on with my coach, Bill, because you guys are like the same person. We all got to kind of just sit down and talk for a few hours and give people some content. So if people want to find the stuff you're doing, BJJ Fanatics, Catch Wrestling Takedowns, scientificwrestling.com, what else?
Yeah, I think so. Scientificwrestling.com is like where you can find the products and the seminars. And when I do get around to hosting tournaments, I haven't really done that much in the last couple of years. I'm a little burned out on that whole scene. But again, I'm really waiting for financial backing. I mean, I've done it for so long. I'm just like, okay, I've done all that. I want to wait to take it to the next level. Anyway, scientificwrestling.com is the best place. But I spend most of my marketing efforts on Instagram. So if you follow us on Instagram, just at Scientific Wrestling, that's probably your best bet because I put jokes and shit on there, but also, all the marketing spiel.
Sweet. Awesome, man. Well, thanks for giving me an hour and a half of your time during all this craziness. Looking forward to doing this again, dude. I think this went really well, and a lot of people got a lot of value out of it.
Oh, good. Now, listen, and I do have to say this. I mean, I do try not to blow smoke, and I really, man, it's guys like you that are the fucking future of this. People that are, okay, we can talk about it in a negative light, that are ADHD or whatever the fucking jerk-off label people like to give that, but entrepreneurs, people that fucking can get a couple plates spinning and actually fucking do it. And it's guys like you that actually take action and fucking host events and know how to fucking make money and make it sustainable and things like that. Without people like you, Josh, I mean, it's dead in the water. So I'm very, very, I feel very, very blessed to have had Sean introduce us and our continued friendship and the stuff that we've worked on together. So anytime I can help you, let me know.
Yeah, me too. Same for you, man. I'm really looking forward to it. I know it's crazy. And before we go, I want to say, I know you're only 47, middle-aged, but like the first half of your life is just so fucking crazy. I can't wait to see what happens for the next 47 years with you, man. And I'm looking forward to being a part of it. And whatever.
I'm hoping I get some money because I'll be really crazy if I get some fucking money. There's going to be some really weird shit going on at that point. But yeah, two things I do want to remind people. One, fucking do not cycle off creatine if you're going to go on any fucking international flight, and definitely hydrate because I almost died like 6 months ago. And fucking be careful with the carotid dissection, guys. I mean, it'll fuck your shit. All the neck stuff. My fucking neck is like a disaster from cervical damage like you got to carotid artery collapse. I've only got one. I'm lucky. I'm fucking lucky that I'm not dead or paralyzed. And please take that to fucking heart. Like, just be careful with that stuff. I'm not saying don't do it. Just be careful with it.
Sweet. That was awesome. All right, dude, let's end this thing.